I sat at my family dinner table, stunned as my parents slid legal papers across the table announcing my sister Amanda would now manage my clinic and receive 25% of profits. After 7 years of 80-hour weeks building my practice from nothing, while my family never offered support, the betrayal stung deeply. When my father smugly mentioned they had already filed preliminary paperwork, I calmly opened my briefcase, extracted my own document, and pointed to clause 4.3. My father's face drained of color, as complete silence fell over the dining room. The journey to that shocking dinner moment began 7 years earlier when I graduated from medical school. Unlike many of my classmates, I didn't have family connections or financial backing to ease my way into practice. What I did have was $300,000 in student debt, a dream of opening my own family practice, and a stubborn determination that my parents always criticized as unhealthy obsession. My name is Luther Montgomery, and I grew up in Pinecrest, a small town in western Pennsylvania where most people left after high school. Those who stayed either worked at the lumber mill, the handful of shops downtown, or commuted 90 minutes to Pittsburgh. My father Walter managed the local hardware store, and my mother Sandra taught 3rd grade at the elementary school. My sister Amanda, 2 years younger than me, bounced between jobs, never seeming to find her place. From the moment I announced my intention to become a doctor, the dynamic in our family shifted. My parents, particularly my father, viewed my ambition with a strange mix of pride and suspicion. "Doctors from big cities come here, not the other way around," he told me repeatedly. "People like us don't become doctors." Despite their doubts, I worked multiple jobs through high school and college, maintained a 4.0 GPA, and eventually secured a spot in medical school. During those grueling years of study, my family's support was minimal at best. My calls home were met with brief conversations about local gossip or complaints about their own problems. Not once did they visit me during those 4 years, citing distance and expense, despite regularly taking vacations to Florida. When I graduated, standing alone as other students celebrated with their families, I made a promise to myself. I would return to Pinecrest and build something meaningful, not to prove my parents wrong, but to serve a community that desperately needed health care. Returning home with my medical degree didn't soften my family's skepticism. When I announced my plan to open a clinic in town, my father laughed. "The old medical building on Pine Street has been empty for 15 years, he said. Dr. Hartman couldn't make it work, and he was from a medical family. "What makes you think you can?" My mother added. "Wouldn't it be safer to join a hospital in Pittsburgh? At least you would have a steady income." Only Amanda said nothing, scrolling through her phone, completely disinterested in my plans or ambitions. Despite their lack of enthusiasm, I purchased the dilapidated building on Pine Street for a surprisingly affordable price. The structure needed extensive renovation, but I saw potential where others saw only decay. During the day, I worked at an urgent care clinic in a neighboring town, saving every penny. Nights and weekends were spent at my building, tearing out rotted drywall, replacing electrical wiring, and painting endless walls. Not once did my family offer to help. When I invited them to see the progress, my father pointed out everything I had done wrong. My mother worried aloud about the money I was wasting. Amanda came once, complained about the dust getting on her clothes, and never returned. Yet at community functions, I noticed a curious trend. My parents began referring to me as our doctor son, and the clinic as our family's new medical practice. The possessive language struck me as odd, but I was too busy to dwell on it. After 18 months of grueling work and navigating a labyrinth of medical licensing, insurance credentialing, and business permits, Pinecrest Family Medicine opened its doors. The early days were difficult. Many locals were hesitant to trust a young doctor they had known as Walter and Sandra's boy. I worked 16-hour days, took calls at all hours, and often accepted payment in home-cooked meals or promises to pay when times were better. Gradually, the practice grew. I hired a nurse, then a receptionist, then another doctor. By year 3, we had expanded into the vacant space next door. By year 5, Pinecrest Family Medicine had become the medical hub for 3 surrounding towns, with 7 staff members, and a reputation for compassionate, thorough care. Throughout this growth, my family remained on the periphery. They came as patients, expecting free care, which I provided without complaint. At holidays, they asked about the business with newfound interest, particularly about finances. My father began stopping by unannounced, chatting with my staff while I was with patients. The first real warning sign came during a community fundraiser last spring. I was speaking with Mrs. Patterson, whose diabetes management had improved significantly under our care, when she mentioned something peculiar. "Your sister was telling me she's excited about joining the family business," she said. "It's wonderful you're making it a true family practice." I maintained my smile, while confusion swirled inside me. Amanda had never expressed the slightest interest in healthcare or my practice. She had bounced from retail to restaurant work, most recently managing a clothing boutique in a nearby town. "Amanda mentioned that?" I asked carefully. "Oh yes, at church last Sunday. She was telling everyone how she's going to be helping run things. Your parents seemed very proud." I thanked Mrs. Patterson and excused myself, my mind racing. That evening I called Amanda directly, something we rarely did as most family communication filtered through our parents. "I ran into Mrs. Patterson today," I said after brief pleasantries. "She mentioned something interesting about you joining the clinic." The long pause told me everything before Amanda even spoke. "Oh, that. Yeah. I've been thinking it might be good to get into something more stable. The boutique isn't doing great, and Mom and Dad thought it made sense for me to join you." "Join me? In what capacity exactly? Do you have an interest in healthcare I don't know about?" Her laugh held a note of condescension that set my teeth on edge. "Not the medical stuff, obviously, but running a business is running a business. I could handle the management side, scheduling, finances, all that boring stuff you probably hate doing anyway. Amanda, I have an office manager who's been with me for years. Nancy has specialized training in medical practice management." "Well," Amanda replied, her voice cooling, "Mom and Dad think it's only fair that I get a position there. You got all the attention growing up with your grades and college stuff. They helped you become a doctor, so..." I nearly dropped the phone. "They helped me? Amanda, I put myself through school. Every penny of tuition, every late-night study session, every sacrifice was mine. They didn't contribute anything." "That's not how they remember it," she said. "Anyway, we can talk about it at Sunday dinner. Mom's making pot roast." She hung up before I could respond, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. This single conversation was about to spiral into a family crisis I never saw coming. Sunday dinner at my parents' house had been a monthly tradition since I returned to Pinecrest. Despite our differences, I valued family connection and hoped that time would bridge the gap between my parents' perception of me and reality. Walking up the familiar concrete steps of their modest 2-story home, I steeled myself for a difficult conversation. My mother greeted me with her usual perfunctory hug, immediately turning back to the kitchen. My father nodded from his recliner, eyes never leaving the football game on television. Amanda sat at the dining table, scrolling through her phone with bored indifference. Dinner began with the usual small talk about neighbors, weather, and local gossip. I waited for someone to broach the subject of Amanda joining my practice, but the conversation carefully skirted around it. Finally, as my mother served apple pie, I decided to address it directly. "So, I understand there's been some discussion about Amanda coming to work at the clinic?" The clatter of forks against plates suddenly stopped. My father cleared his throat and sat up straighter, adopting what I recognized as his time for a lecture posture from my childhood. "It's not just discussion, Luther. It's happening. Amanda needs stability, and that practice of yours has grown big enough to support another family member. Dad, running a medical practice requires specific skills and training. It's not something you can just walk into. My mother reached across to pat my hand condescendingly. Honey, Amanda has management experience from the boutique. Besides, it's family. You owe the family, after all, our emotional support through medical school. The phrase emotional support hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't recall a single instance of encouragement during those grueling years. Just complaints about how rarely I visited and insinuations that I thought myself too good for Pinecrest. I built the practice from nothing, I said, keeping my voice measured. I renovated that building with my own hands while working another job. Not one of you offered to help, not even to bring lunch or hold a ladder. My father's face reddened. We raised you, put food in your mouth, clothes on your back. Everything you are is because of this family. I'm grateful for my childhood, I replied. But that doesn't entitle anyone to a job they're not qualified for. Amanda finally looked up from her phone. The boutique is closing next month. I need income, and it makes sense for me to work with family rather than strangers. I'm happy to help you find something suitable, I offered. I know several business owners in town who might be hiring. I could put in a good word. That's not good enough, my father interrupted. Your sister deserves better than some entry-level job. She deserves to be management, like you. The conversation deteriorated from there. My parents grew increasingly hostile, suggesting my success had made me selfish and that I had forgotten where I came from. When I tried to explain the complexities of medical practice management, they dismissed my concerns as making excuses to keep Amanda out. As I drove home that night, I felt a profound sadness. The divide between my family and me seemed wider than ever. Still, I hoped the matter would settle with time and reflection. That hope was shattered 3 weeks later when Brenda, one of my nurses, approached me between patient appointments with an uncomfortable expression. Dr. Montgomery, can I speak with you privately? In my office, Brenda fidgeted with her stethoscope before speaking. Your sister was here yesterday while you were at the conference. She was telling staff that she'll be taking over management duties soon and evaluating everyone's performance. She implied there might be staffing changes coming. My stomach dropped. Amanda was here? In the clinic? Yes, for about 2 hours. She was shadowing Nancy, looking through schedules and files. She told us your father had brought her in and given her access. I thanked Brenda for the information and immediately called Nancy into my office. My practice manager confirmed everything with visible discomfort. Your father came by to fix that cabinet in the break room, Nancy explained. He brought Amanda with him and introduced her as the new administrative director. I assumed you had discussed this with your family and just hadn't had time to tell the staff yet. Nancy, I had no idea this was happening. Amanda has no role here, and there are no plans for her to join the practice in any capacity. Nancy's relief was palpable. Thank goodness. No offense to your family, but she was asking questions about salary information and looking through confidential files. When I tried to explain our privacy protocols, she said, "Family doesn't need protocols." That evening, I drove straight to my parents' house, calling ahead to ensure both they and Amanda would be there. The conversation needed to happen immediately, before more damage was done. They sat in the living room, presenting a united front as I entered. Before I could speak, my mother launched into an attack. Nancy called Amanda crying today. What did you say to that poor woman to turn her against your sister? I took a deep breath. Nancy didn't call Amanda. I spoke with Nancy because I learned that Amanda was at my clinic, presented herself as management, and accessed confidential information without authorization. I was just getting familiar with the operation, Amanda defended. Dad thought it would be good for me to understand the business before officially starting. There is no officially starting, I said firmly. I never agreed to hire you, and what you did could potentially violate HIPAA laws that protect patient privacy. My father stood, pointing his finger at me. Don't you dare threaten your sister with legal nonsense. That clinic exists because of this family's reputation in town. People come to you because they trust the Montgomery name. People come to me because I provide quality medical care, I corrected. And it's not threats, Dad. Medical privacy is federally regulated. Anyone accessing patient information without authorization puts the entire practice at risk. The argument escalated, with my parents accusing me of paranoia and selfishness. Amanda alternatively played victim and aggressor, switching between tears and sharp accusations about my abandonment of family values. When I left, the situation remained unresolved. My father's parting words followed me to the car. "This isn't over, Luther. Family takes care of family, whether you like it or not." Driving home, I felt something fundamental shift in my understanding of my family dynamic. This wasn't just about a job for Amanda. There was something deeper, more calculated at play, and I needed to understand what I was really facing before things spiraled further out of control. The next day brought the most disturbing development yet. During morning rounds, I greeted Mrs. Wilkins, an elderly patient I had treated for years. Her response chilled me. "Dr. Montgomery, is it true you're bringing in outside management? Your sister was at the grocery store, telling Judy Parker that changes are coming to the clinic. She said she'd be making sure appointments run more efficiently." Throughout the day, 3 more patients mentioned similar conversations. By closing time, it was clear that Amanda had been systematically spreading word throughout our small community that she was taking a management role at the clinic. She wasn't just overstepping boundaries. She was actively undermining my authority with staff and patients. I realized this situation required more than family discussions. It was time to protect what I had built. The following morning, I called Jack Peterson, an attorney who had helped me establish the clinic years ago. His office was in Pittsburgh, which meant a 90-minute drive, but I needed someone with no connections to Pinecrest who could give unbiased advice. Jack's office hadn't changed since my last visit 3 years earlier when we had updated some contracts. The same diplomas hung on the wall, the same worn leather chairs faced his desk, and the same organized chaos of papers covered every surface. "Luther," he said, rising to shake my hand. "Good to see you, though your voice on the phone suggested this isn't a social call." I spent the next hour detailing the situation with my family. Jack listened without interruption, occasionally making notes or nodding. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair with a frown. "Family business disputes are among the messiest I handle," he said. "But this isn't actually a family business, which makes your situation both simpler and more complicated. Let me see your original incorporation documents." As Jack reviewed the paperwork, his frown deepened. "There are some concerning vulnerabilities here. When we set this up, you were focused on getting the practice running, not defending against family takeover attempts." "How vulnerable am I?" I asked. "Your father has keys to the building, correct? And they've demonstrated they'll enter without permission and access sensitive information. That's problem number 1. Your sister has been representing herself as management to staff and community members, which could create a legal presumption of authority if not promptly corrected. That's problem number 2. Jack pulled out a legal pad and began writing. "Here's what we need to do immediately. Change the locks, install security cameras, issue a formal written statement to all staff clarifying that Amanda has no role at the practice, and document every unauthorized action that's occurred so far." I left Jack's office with a comprehensive protection plan and a weight in my stomach. Implementing these changes would create even more family tension, but I saw no alternative. The lock change happened the next day. I hired a security company that also installed cameras at all entrances. My office manager, Nancy, helped draft a clear email to all staff, explaining that no family members had any authority at the practice unless specifically designated by me in writing. My father's reaction was explosive. He showed up at the clinic that afternoon, red-faced and shouting when his key wouldn't work in the door. "What the hell is this, Luther? My key doesn't work." I brought him into my office, away from the wide-eyed patients in the waiting room. Dad, after what happened with Amanda, I needed to increase security. No one should be entering the clinic unless they work here or are patients. I'm your father. I helped build this place. No, Dad, you didn't. And bringing Amanda in to access confidential information crossed a line. I can't have unauthorized people in areas with patient information. This is ridiculous paranoia, he sputtered. We're family, and I love you as family, I replied. But this is a medical practice with legal obligations to protect patient privacy. It's not personal. He left in anger. And that evening, my mother called, crying about how I had humiliated my father and damaged family trust. I tried to explain my position, but she wasn't interested in my perspective. 2 days later, my accountant Martin called me with disturbing news. Dr. Montgomery, someone's been accessing your financial records using the credentials we set up for your quarterly reviews. They've been pulling profit statements, operational costs, revenue projections, everything. My blood ran cold. That wasn't me, Martin. When did this happen? Multiple occasions over the past month, always after business hours. I noticed because the system logs show access from a different device than your usual laptop. I thanked Martin and immediately checked the security camera footage, scrolling back through nights when the clinic was closed. On 3 separate evenings, the cameras showed my father's car pulling up to the back entrance. Amanda emerged from the passenger side, used a key to enter, and spent approximately an hour inside each time. With growing unease, I called Jack again and forwarded him the footage. His advice was direct. We need to know what they're really after, Luther. This goes beyond Amanda wanting a job. Following Jack's guidance, I hired a private investigator named Steve Watkins. A former police detective, Steve was professionally discreet and thorough. Within a week, he provided me with information that changed everything. Your sister has had 3 meetings with a man named Richard Donovan, Steve reported, showing me surveillance photos. He's a business developer for Health First Partners, a company that's been acquiring independent medical practices throughout the region. The photos showed Amanda and a man in an expensive suit meeting at a restaurant 30 miles from Pinecrest, far enough away to avoid local gossip. In one image, they were reviewing documents that looked suspiciously like my clinic's financial statements. Health First's model is to buy local practices, standardize operations, and maximize profitability, Steve continued. They typically retain the original doctor, but bring in their own management. Some doctors find the loss of autonomy challenging, but the buyout packages are substantial, and Amanda is positioning herself as having authority to facilitate a sale, I said, pieces falling into place. But why? What would she gain? Steve slid another document across the table. Health First pays finder's fees to people who help broker acquisitions. Based on your clinic's size and revenue, that could be a 6-figure payment. The betrayal cut deep. Not only was my sister attempting to insert herself into my business, but she was actively working to sell it out from under me. The family dinner comments about deserving a management position had been a smokescreen for a much more calculated plan. That evening, as I processed this information, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice unusually warm and conciliatory. Luther, honey, we feel terrible about all this tension. We want to make things right. Your father and I would like to host a family dinner this Saturday to clear the air. Just the 4 of us, like old times. Every instinct told me this sudden change in tone was suspicious, but I agreed to attend. Before hanging up, my mother added, we have some ideas about how to move forward as a family that we think will make everyone happy. I called Jack immediately after and relayed the dinner invitation. It's obviously a setup, he said, but it might be valuable to hear what they're planning. Just don't sign anything, don't verbally agree to anything, and document everything said. As Saturday approached, I prepared myself for whatever my family might have planned. What I couldn't prepare for was the shocking extent of their scheme, which would become clear over pot roast and mashed potatoes in my childhood home. Saturday evening arrived with an unseasonable chill in the air. Dark clouds threatened rain as I parked in front of my parents' home. The porch light cast a deceptively warm glow over the entrance, belying the tension that awaited inside. My mother answered the door with a bright smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Luther, right on time as always. Come in. Dinner's almost ready." The house smelled of pot roast and freshly baked rolls, my father's favorite meal for what he called important family discussions. I found him and Amanda in the living room, both dressed more formally than usual for a family dinner. Amanda wore a blazer I recognized from her boutique management days, while my father had on a button-down shirt instead of his usual flannel. "Son," my father said with forced joviality, rising to shake my hand like a business associate rather than a father. "Good to see you. Can I get you a drink?" The artificial pleasantness was more unsettling than open hostility. Throughout appetizers and the beginning of dinner, conversation remained superficial. My mother asked about patients without using names. My father commented on town developments, and Amanda spoke little, watching me with calculating eyes. It wasn't until my mother served dessert that my father cleared his throat, exchanged glances with my mother and Amanda, and reached for a leather portfolio beside his chair. "Luther, we've given a lot of thought to the clinic situation. There's been misunderstanding on all sides, but we've found a solution that works for everyone." He opened the portfolio and removed a stack of professionally printed documents, sliding them across the table toward me. The header read Partnership Agreement, Pinecrest Family Medicine, in formal typeset. "We had these drawn up by Tom Wilson," my father continued, referencing a local attorney who had handled his hardware store lease. "It's straightforward. Amanda becomes managing partner with 25% profit share. She handles the business side. You focus on the medical side. Everyone wins." I didn't touch the documents. "Dad, Amanda has no medical management experience. The clinic is extremely successful under current management. Why would I change anything?" My mother jumped in, her voice honeyed, but firm. "Because we're family, Luther. Amanda needs this opportunity, and frankly, you could use the help. Several patients have mentioned to me that appointments run behind schedule. A proper manager could fix that." I felt my jaw tighten but kept my voice even. "Nancy has decreased wait times 15% in the past year while maintaining quality care. What specific management experience would Amanda bring?" Amanda spoke for the first time. "I managed 6 employees at the boutique. Business is business, Luther. Plus, I've been studying healthcare management online." "Studying how?" I asked. "Through a degree program? Certification courses?" She shrugged. "YouTube videos, management articles. The principles are universal." My father tapped the documents impatiently. "The point is, we've already set things in motion. Amanda has been introducing herself to patients, getting to know staff. The transition has begun informally. This just makes it official." I finally picked up the top page of the agreement, scanning its contents. What I read made my stomach clench. Beyond the 25% profit allocation, Amanda would have hiring and firing authority, signatory power on financial accounts, and decision-making authority regarding strategic partnerships, code for selling to larger healthcare groups. "This isn't just about a job for Amanda," I said, looking up from the papers. "This would give her authority to sell the practice." My father had the decency to look momentarily uncomfortable before rallying. "It includes protections for the future of the clinic. Amanda would never make major decisions without consulting you. Yet, there's nothing in here that requires my approval for a sale," I noted, continuing to read. "In fact, Section 7 specifically grants her independent authority to explore acquisition opportunities." My mother waved dismissively. "Those are just standard legal terms. The important thing is keeping the clinic in the family." "This isn't a family business," I said firmly. "I built it myself, with my education, my labor, my financial risk. Not one of you contributed anything." We contributed the Montgomery name, my father countered, his pleasant facade cracking. People trust you because they know your family. That's worth something. It's worth exactly what I've always acknowledged, my gratitude for being raised here. It's not worth 25% of a multi-million-dollar practice. Amanda leaned forward, her expression hardening. It's not like you built it completely alone. Dad did maintenance work. Mom referred her teacher friends. Dad fixed a leaky faucet twice and charged me for parts. Mom's referrals came after the practice was already established. Neither justifies what you're proposing. My father's face reddened. The paperwork has already been filed, Luther. We used your signature from the maintenance invoices to initiate the partnership registration. Tom says it's completely legal since there was no fraud involved. You did sign those invoices. The shock must have shown on my face because Amanda quickly added, "It's just preliminary filing. Nothing's final without these signed documents. But people in town already know I'm joining the practice. Backing out now would look bad for everyone. You filed paperwork using my signature without consent?" My voice was dangerously quiet. My mother reached across to pat my hand. "Now, don't overreact. We did what was necessary because you've been stubborn. Sometimes parents have to make difficult decisions for their children's own good. I'm 34 years old, Mom. I run a successful medical practice. I'm not a child needing guidance." "Then stop acting like one," my father snapped, his forced friendliness completely gone. "Sign the damned papers. Amanda needs this job. The business could use her help, and it's the right thing to do for family." I set down the document and looked at each of them in turn. "And if I refuse?" My father's expression turned cold. "Then I'll tell every patient and business owner in town that you've abandoned your family values, that the success has gone to your head and you've forgotten where you came from. In a small town like Pinecrest, reputation is everything." The threat hung in the air, a chilling testament to how far they were willing to go. I nodded slowly, reached for my briefcase, and set it on the table. "Before I respond to your proposal, there's something you should see." As I opened my briefcase, I felt an unexpected calm settle over me. For years, I had sought my family's approval and support, working to bridge the gap between us. Now, facing their naked attempt at exploitation, that need for approval evaporated like morning dew. When I established the clinic, I began removing a folder. I worked with an attorney in Pittsburgh named Jack Peterson. He specialized in medical practices and understood the unique challenges they face. My father made an impatient gesture. "Tom Wilson has practiced in Pinecrest for 30 years. He knows more about local business than some city lawyer." "Tom handles real estate leases and wills," I replied evenly. "Jack specifically focuses on medical practice law, which involves federal regulations, privacy requirements, and specialized liability concerns." I opened the folder and removed my original business formation documents. Jack insisted on including several protective clauses that I didn't fully appreciate at the time. I was focused on patient care, not defending against potential bad actors. "Bad actors?" my mother echoed, offended. "We're your family? Family or not? What you're attempting is inappropriate and potentially illegal," I said. "Dad just admitted to using my signature without authorization to file official documents. That's fraud, regardless of his justification." I turned to the relevant section of my documents and placed it beside their partnership agreement. Clause 4.3 specifically addresses ownership transfer. It states that no transfer of ownership, management authority, or profit allocation can occur without unanimous board approval. My father squinted at the document. "What board?" "There's no board." "Exactly," I replied. "The practice is structured as a professional corporation with myself as sole director. Since there is no board beyond me, unanimous approval is impossible without my consent. Any attempt to transfer ownership or authority is automatically invalid." Amanda's face flushed with anger. "That's just a technicality. The intent is clear. Family businesses pass to family members." Again, This isn't a family business. It's my professional practice, built on my medical license, education, and personal financial risk. None of you have any legal claim to it. My father pushed the partnership documents toward me again. Sign these, and we'll forget the technical problems. It's the right thing to do. Instead of responding directly, I removed another document from my briefcase. I had a security system installed at the clinic last week. The cameras captured some interesting footage. I slid printed stills from the security video across the table. They clearly showed Amanda entering the clinic after hours using my father's key, accessing the computer in Nancy's office, and leaving with what appeared to be documents. Entering a medical facility without authorization and accessing confidential systems constitutes several potential violations of law, I continued, my voice steady. But more concerning is what happened with that information. I produced the final piece of evidence. Photographs from the private investigator showing Amanda meeting with Richard Donovan from Health First Partners, reviewing what were clearly my clinic's financial documents. Amanda has been meeting with a corporate acquisition specialist, positioning herself as having authority to facilitate selling my practice. The finder's fee for such a transaction would be substantial. The color drained from my father's face as he stared at the photographs. My mother gasped. Amanda looked away, her expression confirming everything. "You weren't seeking a job," I said to Amanda. "You were trying to broker a sale for personal profit. It would have benefited everyone," she muttered. "Health First offers good buyout packages. Did you even ask what I wanted? Whether I had any interest in selling the practice I built from nothing? Whether the patients who trust me would be well served by corporate medicine?" No one answered. The silence in the dining room was absolute. I gathered the evidence back into my briefcase. "I'm leaving now. This documentation has been shared with my attorney. If you pursue this further, file any additional paperwork, or continue to misrepresent yourselves to my staff or patients, I will have no choice but to take legal action." As I stood to leave, my father found his voice. "You would sue your own family? Over a business?" "No, Dad. I would protect my patients, my staff, and my professional reputation from anyone attempting to exploit them. Even family, especially family, who should know better." I walked out without looking back, the weight of years of seeking approval lifting from my shoulders with each step. The next morning, I met with Nancy at the clinic before patients arrived. Her relief at hearing my account was palpable. "I've been worried for weeks," she admitted. "Amanda told me she'd be evaluating my performance and hinted my position might change. When I tried to talk to you about it, your father interrupted. You should have come to me directly," I said. Nancy looked down. "I didn't want to cause family problems. And honestly, I wasn't sure if maybe you had agreed to bring her in and just hadn't told me yet." Her uncertainty bothered me deeply. Nancy had been with me for 5 years, helping build the practice from its early struggling days. That my family had managed to make her doubt our professional relationship showed how effective their manipulation had been. "Nancy, I need you to know something important. This practice exists because of the hard work of the people in it, including you. No one is going to waltz in and take over, regardless of their last name." The relief in her eyes was immediate, but she hesitated before speaking again. "There's something else you should know. I've been documenting Amanda's interference for months. She retrieved a file from her desk containing dates, times, and detailed accounts of Amanda's visits to the clinic, conversations with staff, and attempts to access information. Most shocking were transcriptions of recorded conversations where Amanda told staff she would be making personnel changes and accessing patient records. I wasn't sure what was happening, but my previous job was at a clinic that underwent a hostile takeover. I recognized the signs, Nancy explained. When she started asking for access to patient records without proper authorization, I knew something was wrong. I reviewed the documentation with a growing appreciation for Nancy's foresight. "This is incredibly thorough. Why didn't you show me sooner?" Nancy met my eyes directly. Because they're your family. I needed to be absolutely certain before potentially creating a rift between you and them. Her loyalty and discretion reinforced what I already knew about the quality of my team. While my biological family had been plotting against me, my professional family had been protecting the practice we had built together. Thank you, Nancy. This will be helpful if we need to pursue further legal protection. I spent the afternoon updating Jack on the dinner confrontation and sharing Nancy's documentation. His assessment was both reassuring and troubling. Your business formation documents will protect you legally, he said. But family disputes rarely end cleanly. Be prepared for personal fallout. I already am, I replied, surprised by my own calmness. I think this confrontation was inevitable. I've been chasing their approval for years while they've been seeing me as a resource to exploit rather than a son to support. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Just be careful. People who feel entitled to something often react badly when that entitlement is challenged. Document everything, update your security protocols, and be transparent with your staff about the situation. Following his advice, I scheduled a staff meeting for the following morning. Everyone from our 2 doctors to our maintenance person attended. I explained the situation clearly, emphasizing that no one in my family had any authority at the practice. If anyone presents themselves as management or requests information without proper authorization, please report it immediately, I concluded. And know that I value each of you and the work we do together. This practice succeeds because of our collective efforts. The support from my team was unanimous and heartening. As we disbanded to prepare for the day's patients, I felt more confident in my position. The practice I had built wasn't just about me anymore. It was about all of us who worked there and the patients who trusted us with their care. That evening, as I reviewed patient files at home, I received a text from Amanda. This isn't over. You're being selfish and hurting the family. Think about someone besides yourself for once. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say that hadn't been said at dinner. The real work now was preparing for whatever might come next. In the week following the confrontation, an uneasy quiet settled over my relationship with my family. My father hadn't appeared at the clinic to demand entry. My mother's usual text messages about town gossip had ceased. Amanda's social media, which I rarely checked, showed she had taken a mental health break from posting. The silence was both a relief and cause for concern. In my experience, my family rarely accepted defeat quietly. I used the reprieve to strengthen my position, following Jack's comprehensive legal strategy. First, I formally documented every unauthorized access to the clinic, creating a chronological record with witness statements and security footage. Next, I sent certified letters to my parents and Amanda, explicitly revoking any perceived authority they might claim regarding the practice. Finally, I instructed my bank to add additional verification steps for any changes to practice accounts. Meanwhile, I had the private investigator, Steve, continue monitoring the situation. His reports revealed troubling information about both Amanda and my parents. Your sister has significant gambling debts, Steve explained during our meeting. Online poker primarily, but also sports betting. Based on my sources, she's down at least $60,000, with creditors becoming increasingly insistent about payment. This explained Amanda's desperate need for income beyond what her boutique job had provided. The potential finder's fee from Health First would have solved her financial problems instantly. And my parents? I asked, suspecting their motivation went beyond simply helping Amanda. Steve's expression turned grimmer. They remortgaged their house 3 years ago to invest in a real estate development outside Pittsburgh. The development went bankrupt, and they're underwater on the loan. They've been making minimum payments, but their retirement savings have been depleted. The timing aligned perfectly with their increased interest in my practice's finances. What had appeared as simple entitlement was actually financial desperation. Have they approached Health First directly? I asked. Not that I've found, Steve replied. But they've had several meetings with Amanda and that local attorney. Tom Wilson. Wilson specializes in bankruptcy avoidance strategies, among other things. I thanked Steve and asked him to continue monitoring the situation. That evening, I called Jack to update him on these developments. "This changes the dynamic," Jack said after hearing about my family's financial troubles. "They're not just being opportunistic, they're drowning, and see your practice as a life raft, which makes them more dangerous, not less," I observed. "Exactly. Desperate people take desperate actions. We need to anticipate their next move." We discussed possibilities ranging from my family attempting to access practice accounts to spreading rumors about my professional competence. Jack advised documenting any communication with them and avoiding private conversations that couldn't be verified later. The next morning brought the first indication of my father's counterattack. Mrs. Sanderson, an elderly patient with chronic heart issues, mentioned something concerning during her appointment. "Dr. Montgomery, is everything all right with you? Your father was telling George at the barber shop that you've been working too hard and showing signs of burnout. He said you might need help managing things before patient care suffers." I maintained my professional composure while noting the calculated nature of the comment. "I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Sanderson, but I'm doing very well. My work schedule is manageable, and our patient satisfaction scores have never been higher." "Well, that's a relief." He made it sound quite serious, talking about how your sister might need to step in to help manage things before there's a decline in care. Throughout the day, 3 more patients made similar comments. By closing time, it was clear my father had launched a whisper campaign, suggesting I was overworked to the point of potential incompetence, with Amanda positioned as the necessary solution. In a small town like Pinecrest, reputation was everything, particularly for a doctor. Patients needed to trust my judgment and abilities. Suggesting I was burning out could damage that trust permanently. Nancy came to my office after the last patient left, her expression troubled. "Luther, several patients called today asking about the management transition your father mentioned at church. Mrs. Wilkins specifically asked when your sister would be taking over scheduling. What did you tell them?" "That there are no management changes planned and any rumors to the contrary are incorrect." "But they seemed confused, saying your parents spoke very confidently about it." I nodded grimly. "They're trying to create a situation where patients expect and demand changes, putting pressure on me to acquiesce." That evening, I drove to Pittsburgh to meet with Jack again, bringing recordings of the patient comments and notes from Nancy's calls. Jack reviewed everything with growing concern. "This is a calculated attempt to undermine patient confidence," he said. "We need to address it directly, but carefully. If you openly accuse your family of spreading rumors, it could appear as family drama spilling into your professional life, which would only harm your reputation further. So what do you suggest? A positive campaign rather than a defensive one. Send a practice newsletter highlighting recent achievements, patient satisfaction scores, and your commitment to the community. Make it clear the practice is thriving without directly addressing the rumors." I implemented Jack's suggestion immediately, working with Nancy to compile practice statistics and patient testimonials for a professional newsletter. We distributed it electronically to all patients and placed printed copies in the waiting room. The strategy seemed to work. Patient comments about management changes and my supposed burnout decreased. However, my relief was short-lived. 1 week after distributing the newsletter, Steve called with alarming news. "Your parents have scheduled a dinner with the mayor and 3 town council members for tomorrow night." The meeting was arranged by Tom Wilson and is being held at the Grill, in a private dining room. The Grill was Pinecrest's only upscale restaurant, where important business was often discussed away from public ears. The inclusion of the mayor and council members suggested my family was escalating beyond mere rumors. "Can you find out what they're planning?" I asked. "Already working on it. The restaurant manager owes me a favor. I'll let you know what I learn." The next evening, Steve called again. "Luther, They're discussing zoning regulations for medical facilities. Your father suggested the current clinic location might be better rezoned for retail, with medical services consolidated at the new urgent care facility on the edge of town. The implication was clear. If my family couldn't take over my practice, they would attempt to have it relocated through municipal pressure. The urgent care was owned by Health First Partners, which explained Amanda's earlier meetings with their representative. Is this something the council could actually do? I asked. Potentially. The building you're in was grandfathered into current medical zoning when you renovated it. They're exploring whether sufficient changes were made during renovation to nullify that status. This was a direct threat to the practice's physical location, where we had built strong community connections. Moving to the town outskirts would dramatically impact elderly patients who walked to appointments and could decrease our visibility to new residents. I immediately called Jack, who connected me with a colleague specializing in municipal law. The assessment was mixed. The council probably couldn't force relocation based solely on zoning technicalities, but they could make operations difficult through increased inspections, parking enforcement, and other bureaucratic measures. This is a pressure tactic, Jack's colleague explained. They're trying to make maintaining your current location so troublesome that selling to Health First seems like the easier option. The realization that my family would go to such lengths was profoundly disappointing but no longer surprising. Their financial desperation had overridden any family loyalty or ethical considerations. As I prepared for the inevitable confrontation, I gathered documentation of the practice's community contributions, including free clinics for low-income residents, medical education programs at the local high school, and our policy of never turning away patients regardless of ability to pay. I also compiled evidence of Health First's practices in other communities, where they had increased prices, reduced service hours, and eliminated community programs that didn't contribute directly to profit. Armed with this information, I requested my own meeting with the mayor, positioning it as a discussion about healthcare accessibility in Pinecrest rather than a direct response to my family's machinations. Mayor Jenkins had been a patient since I opened the practice, and her husband's diabetes management had improved significantly under our care. She listened attentively as I shared my community commitment and subtle concerns about corporate healthcare models. I understand your family has suggested rezoning the clinic property, she said when I finished. I should tell you, Luther, most of us on the council remember when that building sat empty for years. No one wanted to invest in downtown until you came back and took the risk. We haven't forgotten that. Her support was encouraging but didn't eliminate the threat. My family's desperation made them unpredictable, and I needed to be prepared for their next move. That preparation would prove crucial sooner than expected. 3 days later, my mother called with an unexpected olive branch. Luther, honey, this has all gotten out of hand. Your father and I want to have a quiet family dinner Sunday to resolve everything. Just the 4 of us. No lawyers, no documents. Can you come over around 6? The timing was suspicious, coming just after their municipal maneuvering had been challenged. But refusing would make me appear unreasonable to any neutral observers. I'll be there, I agreed, already planning how to protect myself during what was certainly another trap. Sunday evening arrived with a sense of inevitability. As I drove to my parents' house, fall leaves swirled across the street, their bright colors fading to brown. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. This dinner would mark the final decay of my family relationships as I had known them. I arrived precisely at 6, bringing nothing but my briefcase. My mother opened the door with a smile that seemed less forced than at our previous dinner. Luther, I'm so glad you came, she said, hugging me briefly. Your father's in the dining room. We thought we'd eat first, then talk. No point discussing difficult things on an empty stomach. The dining room table was set with the good china, a rarity in our household. My father stood as I entered, offering his hand. His grip was firm, his expression unreadable. Amanda sat across the table, her eyes avoiding mine. Dinner proceeded with carefully neutral conversation about weather, local sports teams, and reminiscences about my childhood. Safer topics that avoided our current conflict. The pot roast was perfectly cooked, the potatoes creamy, the green beans fresh. My mother had clearly put effort into the meal, which only heightened my suspicion about what would follow. As my mother cleared the dessert plates, my father cleared his throat. "Luther, we've had time to reflect on our last conversation. Things got heated, and perhaps we all said things we didn't fully mean." I remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "Your mother and I realize we may have overstepped. The clinic is your creation, and we're proud of what you've built." He paused, exchanging glances with my mother as she returned from the kitchen. "But families should still support each other." My mother sat down and folded her hands on the table. "What your father is trying to say is that we have a new proposal, one that respects your authority while still bringing Amanda into the business." Amanda finally looked at me. "I've been taking some actual courses in medical office management, Luther. Online classes through the community college. I'm serious about learning the right way to do things." My father reached beside his chair and produced a new set of documents, less formally bound than the previous ones. We had Tom draw up a more reasonable agreement. Amanda starts in an entry-level position, learns the business properly, and we see how things develop naturally. He slid the papers across the table. The header read employment agreement rather than partnership agreement. Progress, but I remained cautious. "And what does this entail exactly?" I asked, not reaching for the documents yet. "A regular position, regular salary," my father explained. "No management authority, until you decide she's earned it. No ownership share, unless you choose to offer it later." It sounded reasonable on the surface, but experience had taught me to look deeper. "And what about the conversations with Health First? The meetings with town council about rezoning?" My father's expression tightened momentarily before relaxing into a practiced smile. "Water under the bridge. We got carried away trying to secure Amanda's future. This approach is better for everyone." I finally took the document, scanning its contents carefully. The language was indeed more moderate than their previous proposal, positioning Amanda as a regular employee without special authority. However, several clauses caught my attention, particularly regarding future considerations and family succession planning. Setting the papers aside, I opened my briefcase and removed a single folder. "Before I respond to this proposal, there are some things we need to discuss openly." I extracted the first document, a printout of Amanda's online gambling transactions over the past year. "Amanda, these records show over $60,000 in gambling debts to various online platforms. Is this why you needed sudden access to clinic profits?" Amanda's face flushed deep red. She looked to our parents, who appeared equally shocked. Clearly, they hadn't known the extent of her financial problems. "That's private information," she stammered. "How did you get that?" "It became relevant when you attempted to leverage my practice to solve your financial problems." I turned to my parents. "And you both remortgaged your home for a real estate investment that failed, depleting your retirement savings. Is that correct?" My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's jaw tightened. "Our finances are none of your business, Luther. They became my business when you tried to use my practice to solve them," I countered. "When you spread rumors about my professional competence to pressure me into giving Amanda a position. When you met with town officials to discuss rezoning my clinic location. I placed the final document on the table, a printed email from Richard Donovan at Health First Partners. This communication confirms that Amanda was promised a six-figure finder's fee if she could facilitate Health First's acquisition of my practice. It also suggests that you, Dad, would receive a consulting retainer for 2 years after the sale." The silence that followed was absolute. My mother looked down at her hands. Amanda stared at the wall. My father's face showed a complex mix of anger and shame. This was never about Amanda deserving an opportunity or the family working together, I said quietly. It was about using my years of work and sacrifice to solve your financial problems, regardless of what I wanted or what was best for the practice. You don't understand, my father finally said, his voice strained. We're going to lose the house, Luther. The house you grew up in. Amanda's in trouble with some serious people over her debts. We're family. We're supposed to help each other. I agree completely, I replied, removing one final document from my briefcase. Family should help each other. But help doesn't mean exploitation. I slid my own document across the table. This is a legitimate offer of assistance. I'm willing to help Amanda enter a gambling addiction treatment program, fully funded. I'll also connect you both with a financial advisor who specializes in retirement recovery and debt management. I'm prepared to provide a family loan to stabilize your immediate situation, with reasonable repayment terms. They stared at the paper, then at me. What I won't do, I continued, is compromise the practice I've built, or the patients who depend on it. I won't allow Amanda to take a position she's not qualified for, and I certainly won't sell to a corporate entity that would raise prices and reduce services in our community. My father pushed away my offer. So you'll help on your terms, not ours. That's not really helping. No, Dad. I'm offering legitimate help, addressing the real problems. You're asking me to sacrifice my life's work as a quick fix for problems that would only return because their causes haven't been addressed. I stood and gathered my papers. The offer stands. Amanda can get treatment. You can get financial counseling. I'll provide a reasonable loan. But there will be no position for Amanda at the clinic until she's qualified. No ownership transfer, and absolutely no sale to Health First or any other corporate entity. And if we don't accept your terms, my father challenged, then I'll protect my practice through every legal means available. I have documentation of attempted fraud, unauthorized access to medical records, interference with patient relationships, and conspiracy to undermine a licensed medical facility. I don't want to use any of it, but I will if necessary. My mother began to cry softly. Amanda looked trapped, eyes darting between our parents and me. My father's face had gone pale, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. Think about it, I said more gently. This offer comes from genuine concern for all of you. The practice has the resources to help, but not to be exploited. I walked to the door, turning back one final time. Let me know your decision by Friday, and regardless of what you choose, I hope someday we can rebuild our family relationships on more honest terms. The drive home was quiet, streetlights casting intermittent shadows across my face. I felt no triumph, no vindication, only a sad clarity about what my family had become and what it might still be if they could accept help on appropriate terms. 6 months later, I sat in my office reviewing quarterly performance numbers with Nancy. Patient satisfaction ratings had reached 97%. Our expanded community health initiative had provided free screenings to over 200 residents. The practice continued to thrive. These numbers are fantastic, Nancy observed, especially considering everything that happened. The everything she referred to had unfolded gradually after that final family dinner. My parents had initially rejected my offer, maintaining that Amanda deserved a position at the clinic. But reality had eventually forced their hand. Amanda's creditors had become more insistent, leading to a confrontation that finally revealed to my parents the full extent of her gambling problem. Facing the potential loss of their home and with no other options, they had finally accepted my assistance. Amanda was now 4 months into a recovery program in Pittsburgh, showing promising progress. My parents were working with a financial advisor who had restructured their debt and created a sustainable retirement plan. Our family relationships remained strained but civil, with monthly dinners that carefully avoided discussion of the clinic. Sometimes, I told Nancy, the hardest part of running a practice isn't the medicine or the business. It's maintaining your vision when others want to change it for their own purposes. Nancy nodded. I'm just glad you stood your ground. This place means too much to too many people to risk changing what makes it work. As we wrapped up our meeting, my phone pinged with a text message from Amanda. 6 months clean today. Thanks for not giving up on me. Program counselor says I might be ready for part-time work soon. Not asking for anything, just sharing the milestone. It was the first message from her that contained no demands, no entitlement, just a simple sharing of progress. Perhaps, with time and continued healing, genuine family relationships might still be possible. After Nancy left, I walked through the clinic, observing the staff interacting with patients, the smooth operations, the atmosphere of care and respect we had cultivated. This was what I had fought to protect. Not just a business, but a mission to serve my community with integrity and compassion. The practice would continue to evolve and grow, but it would do so according to the vision that had driven me since medical school. A vision of healthcare that put patients first, that served the community with dedication, and that maintained independence from corporate influence. The journey had been painful, revealing truths about my family I had long denied. But it had also affirmed the importance of boundaries, the value of genuine support versus exploitation, and the strength that comes from staying true to your principles even when pressured to abandon them. As I looked around at what I had built, I felt a profound sense of peace. The clinic would remain what I had always intended it to be, a place of healing, integrity, and service, and that was worth fighting for, no matter who the opposition might be. Have you ever had to protect something you built from people who wanted to use it for their own gain? How did you handle maintaining your boundaries while preserving relationships? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content, and share it with others who might be facing similar challenges. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the strength to protect what matters most to you.